Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for tuning in for my painting hangout, where today we're going to be painting some really fun stuff. It's going to be super disgusting and gross, and that's entirely as intended. Let me get the lights on. Let there be lights. Alright, so today I figured I'm gonna get started on my terrain painting backlog, which is pretty bad. And I thought it'd be another good chance to show off how I approach terrain painting, which is quite a bit different from how I approach nature painting. So this is some of the pieces that I'll be painting today. So sewer terrain from the Lost Adventures Kickstarter. This should be Lost Adventures Volume 3. And these are pretty much fresh off the printer. Haven't done any post-processing, no priming, no whatever. So if you are completely new to painting terrain, this should be a pretty good way for you to get used to it without doing anything super fancy or buying any special paints. So you really don't have to. So this one, a couple other ones as well, those smaller. So I have entire box of stuff. And these are kind of just sewer pipes. You might not use this if you are having a more medieval, older fantasy setting. Because everything else should work just fine. Hey Rizal, thanks for joining us. Hello. I was just saying that I'm gonna get started painting up all of this older terrain that our friend Puriton has very generously painted up for us. And there's just a few smaller scattered pieces we're doing sewers. So you can use this if your usual dungeon tiles with stone and whatever. By just adding them in, it really helps kind of fill out your sewers and make them feel like, you know, they're actually dirty and disgusting and grimy and gross. So I guess the easiest couple of places to start working on would be, I guess, this piece. And let's do pieces first. Right, and the others I'll just rotate through them as I finish and as I continue working with stuff. Yeah, check out these matching pipes. They all match. Yes, glorious. This side. So the good thing about these pieces is that they are already painted in grey, so it's a little less work for me because for my silver pieces, I like to add colors other than grey into them, but because this is already grey, I can just focus on adding those colors. So for silvers, if I want something to be really disgusting, I want to have greens, a bit of purple, a lot of brown, and I'm thinking we want to do the metal grade as maybe corroded copper or steel. I've not decided yet. And I think my first step here is to just do roughly base coat the pieces. And I'm gonna do that by mixing up some brown. So I want to go for really, really dark brown. Hey, Ledro! Glad could tune in. I'm just gonna be painting some Stimky sewer terrain today. No, I do not want to wear a hat. Why do you always do this to me? This weather is too hot. Hats are a terrible idea. Um, I want a teeny tiny bit of black. A small amount of black. Because if I'm gonna apply this all over, it's gonna be a great wash application, I guess. Okay. Squeeze out, damn you. Okay. Small amount. Very stupid hat. Right, it needs to be a really poopy color. Like super poopy. As compared to little bit poopy. And I think one of my favorite colors actually for a wash was this color from Secret Weapon. They had a wash that was called like baby poop, and it's just this greenish brown color, which works really well, but also that's disgusting. But hey, you gotta get some green in there, I guess. Why is my... Is it just me, or is my music being a little weird at the moment? So we got the browns, and let's add a little bit of the green. Green. And this would normally be a lovely color for painting all kinds of trees. So I use this for painting most of my generic green trees, and then I just dry brush them different color. This is the color whose name I cannot type in chat, but it is Hookah's Green. It's a color that I think a guy called John Hooker came up with, and that's why it's named after him. It's called Hookah's Green. That's his last name, and not something at all I'm implying about him. Let's add a little bit of burnt sienna. So burnt sienna is a reddish brown. And if you are painting a lot of skin tones, this is a great color to start from. So look at this absolute disgusting mess of poopy colors. And as we continue painting, I'm not gonna bother like trying to replicate this mix. I'm just gonna keep going, adding more colors to this until we get something that's super disgusting and exactly what we want. Just gonna pour a little bit of water in here. So much. That's fine, just keep mixing this color together. So this is... Oh, look at this, it's disgusting. Disgusting. Absolutely putrid. Putrid colors. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna start by slathering this color all over the surfaces. Just, and especially on the floor areas. Then it's just like the camera cannot accurately capture just how disgusting brown this is. It is pretty disgusting. And it's gonna get worse because I think I'm gonna be adding more green to that. And also keep in mind that this is a little bit translucent because I'm working with artist paints right now. And they tend to be a bit more translucent, even with the black added. So I'm just adding this color onto there in a super messy fashion. And I think these are a couple of mushrooms, and that works. So normally when I'm painting stone, I try not to paint it grey. But with sewers, what I'm gonna go for is having the ground be this grimy, disgusting sewage color. and then the stone is going to be grimy and disgusting too, but I'll have a bit more of the grey in there to help differentiate it from the rest of the floor. Okay, it's just disgusting. Maybe not so much with the light. Light's a bit bright. The light bouncing away. Tone it down. There we go. Nice poopy colors. And this is also super quick to do, so I have no complaints on the process. The most important thing of doing terrain painting is figuring out a way to kind of like batch paint your work. Because you don't want to spend too long on any one piece, and you use a lot of paint, so you don't want to mix up a bit of paint and then find out that, hey, you know, I actually could have used a lot more of this color. But because I let it dry on the palette and was not paying attention, I can't mix up more. So the secret to terrain painting is planning. Please plan your like paint schemes roughly. You don't have to know exactly how you're gonna paint something, but at least identify which material should be painted similar colors. So that way, when you are done with each part, you can just move on to the next part, and you don't waste time. See, nobody got time for that. There's poopy, disgusting, greenish brown. And I noticed that there's actually a lot of moss in these pieces. Or algae or whatever. So I need to paint that a different color later, maybe. It's gonna be fun. Okay, shall move my wet palette aside to make a little more space to put these pieces while they dry. So anyway, what's everyone up to tonight? Are you also painting stuff like I am? Are you working on your own stuff? It's been a super busy week for us. And other than my painting stream on Wednesday, I haven't had much time to paint. Except for yesterday when I was like rushing out some miniatures for a game during the actual game itself. Though they did at least come in handy during the game. So I can't complain about that. Right. Oh, you also notice that for terrain painting, I don't always use the wet palette because I'm using really thick paints here in large amounts, so I prefer using like a well palette in this case. Because it's mainly just a couple of colors. It's only when I'm moving on to painting the more precise parts of terrain that I swap out and start using my wet palettes. So you see me painting the water. Later on, I might use the wet palette instead. And I'm just using a slightly larger brush to quickly apply all of this brown to the brown pieces. And I'm not caring too much about thinning. I'm not really wiping my brush off on the paper towel. I'm just plopping that paint onto the piece and then using a brush to move it around. So, lots of color. Hey, so this terrain's actually from the Lost Adventures Volume 3 Kickstarter. And it's the sewer terrain. So this is the sewer pipes and just general sewer terrain from them. And it's pretty nice. I like it because you're not forced to use sewer tiles. You can just use whichever normal dungeon tiles you have and just put this down and it turns into sewer. It's pretty cool. Very useful. Also, hey boss from leader. It's your first time chatting. Nice to meet you. Okay. Allow me to Tetris these pieces so I have more space to put stuff. I'm gonna go to the side and stay there. And I need another couple of pieces to make it up. By one of them. So for these pieces, where it's going to be a little different because these are just the sewer pipes, I won't be base coating this for now. I'll be using a slightly different color later on. So I'll put this aside first, and I'm going to work on painting the ground of these pieces. So earlier on, I mixed a little bit of the color on this small well palette, using a bit of brown, a bit of burnt sienna. So when I'm painting terrain, I normally mix my own paints using student acrylics, so kind of like artist pigmented paints. And that's because they're a lot cheaper than using actual miniature paints. And the only things that I use miniature paints for on these pieces is when I'm painting very specific parts that I know the exact recipes for, or if I'm airbrushing. And generally speaking, I only really use those for metallics. Because I have a lot of metallic paints of varying qualities and I don't mind using them on these pieces. So I actually don't do a lot of metallic painting anymore. And this one is just fun. It's so relaxing to just sit here and just spread this baby poop colored paint all over the piece. It's like being a toddler again. Right? And we have a lot of terrain. I paint so much terrain for our stuff. It's not so bad if you can get some of the cheaper miniature paints, but if I use the exact same paints on my miniatures, it can get a little bit expensive. And also because these are FDM printed, they're 3D printed pieces, the pieces themselves are not really perfect. They have a bit of layer lines if you look closely, right? The surface isn't super nice, but because I'm using these student paints and they're a little thicker than usual, when they are applied to the piece, they help smooth out that texture a bit. And that's actually useful because I won't do that with miniature paint. I'll spread it nice and thin and smooth. But on this one, I just slop the paint on. It makes it look better in the long term. So that's actually to our advantage. These paints are also thick. They're like super thick. Okay, just lobbing this paint on. It can be really rough in brushes. I'm just using synthetics for this. And then my really old crappy brushes, look at this. If you use a lot of dry brushing, you're gonna kill your brushes really fast. Needless to say. But that's actually why for terrain painting, I don't use dry brushing as much. And that's doubly so because I'm painting 3D printed terrain. And sometimes when you dry brush 3D printed terrain, you get the artifacts that are left over from printing and they show up a lot more obviously. So I try to paint in a style that uses a lot more wet blending, so it's a little more smooth to work with. Exactly. You stipple on or you wet blend. Or if you dry brush, it's on really specific areas. And yeah, terrain painting is super fun. Like for a while when I hit a wall with painting miniatures and I just couldn't, I ended up doing a lot of terrain painting instead, and I do not regret it. Because it's a lot more relaxed to just paint like this. And no matter what it is, so long as you're actually painting, you're still working on your basic terrain, on your basic painting skills. And that's gonna be useful for you whether you're painting miniatures or painting terrain. Okay, this aside. The only thing with painting terrain is that it can be a little messy, as you can tell right now. Where you my other pieces come from. Oh, I also had a couple of pieces to work on. Can I mage hand my walkway pieces? Mage hand, please. The walkway pieces, the two bridges, small bridges. The two wooden small bridges that I painted. The two flat small bridges that I pointed out and passed to you, Crimson. Never mind, I'll be right back. Yes, now where was I? I think we're talking about general painting terrain stuff. And I was saying that what's it saying? See, I don't remember anymore. This is why, you know, mage hand isn't a very useful cantrip if mage hand is not very helpful. But there's one thing that I don't like about terrain painting, and I'm not sure if you guys have noticed that, is that a lot of people try too hard to be too realistic with the terrain painting, and their terrain ends up super dark. And it's just, you know, dark browns, dark grays, and there is no contrast in the piece. But if you actually look at materials, rusting stuff in real life, you will actually realize that there's a lot of interesting color in there. For example, iron, when it starts rusting, you're gonna get the raids, of course. You're gonna get the the oranges, the burnt oranges. But the deeper the rust is, the more interesting the colors are, because you end up going towards green. And then at the deepest and darkest, the most rusted portions, it actually has a bit of purple on there. And that's just from looking at it in a real life situation. So if you are painting stuff, there is no reason to just go super dark and weathered and brown for everything. That works too. In fact, for this piece, I'm going to be using, I think, a lot of the stippled on color. A lot of off-whites in this. But that's why I'm underpainting it right now. So that the parts that I want dark and disgusting are going to be dark and disgusting first. And then I'm going to paint in a lot of blues and greens and whatever, right? And then when I dry brush the stipple color on over that, it's going to look a lot better. Like for my other terrain, I use a lot of airbrushing. But that's not something that's really easy for me to show on the stream. So I won't do that today. Now what I'm going to do next, like I was saying earlier, is take this brown mix that I have and just add more colors to it and work up from those colors. So later on I'm going to be getting a bit of my grey, adding a bit of white to that and going in over the various I guess cobblestones on here to bring them out and make them pop against this dark brown background. And terrain painting is kind of like the part of painting where I experiment a lot more. So sometimes I might go with very cartoony, very bright, saturated colors. Sometimes I'm gonna go with a lot more dark and dingy, very grimy kind of colors. And that's fine. Because in the end, as long as it all has enough contrast, it looks okay on the table. So this pieces in particular are gonna be super dark and grimy. So I'm just gonna go over the black resin that I painted them in with the brown first. These are also from the Lost Avengers Kickstarter, which is a really great value Kickstarter if you want terrain and quite a lot of miniatures. Hello, Carl. I see you have spawned. Do not sneak attack me. I am painting. Also, some people don't, but I actually like printing terrain in resin as well because it's super fast and the details are just so clean and so smooth. So maybe not entire buildings, though I have done that in resin, but just painting stuff and printing stuff that is resin printed is a real joy. And on small pieces like this, it actually doesn't take that long. Even on this smaller resin printers, you can fit like 2 of these pieces side by side. And it's easy enough to just remove. So, printing scattered terrain in resin is one of my favorite things to do. It just looks good. So smooth. No fake lines and nothing. Like even if there are fake lines, it's super minimal. Okay. I need a spot to put this that is not something else. So I'll go back to work on this huge piece. While the other parts dry. So like I said, only problem with working on stuff using the artist pins is that they do take a little longer to dry when you put them on thick. But it's okay because you like thick. I like thick pins and you cannot lie. Okay, where did I put this? To move you to the very gonna be used corner along with you, cadmium yellow. Goodbye. And I'm gonna be working on this large stone part as well as the sewage or water or whatever it is, it's disgusting, that's coming through. So for brown stone, I normally go with a kind of reddish brown stone, like the red brick houses that you see. The problem as well is just that, you know, we're underground, so that's not gonna be super common. If you're building sewers, you're probably gonna go with a more tan colored stone or a more grey stone. And I would normally go for the grey stone because the tan colored stone is gonna get super disgusting if you're gonna be in a, you know, putrid sewer like this. If talking about a sewer system like storm drain system, then absolutely a more brightly colored stone works well for that. And that will be a good thing. But because I want to go super disgusting for this, I also need to clean up the poor matte later on. I think I'm gonna do grey. So I'm just gonna take this original color and add in the grey. Let's add so much grey. Okay. And this grey is wet right now, so it's a bit brighter than it's gonna be. And in order to make that less converting to work with, I'm gonna add a little bit of zinc white. So zinc white is like titanium white, it's not quite as strong, but it mixes well into every other color. So let's do the mixing thing. Let's mix all the paints. It's very satisfying to do. Paint mixing. And you can still see that the brown hasn't fully mixed in yet, so we're gonna keep going to darken that down. But right now, it's a reasonable solid grey color. And I can just apply this all over the stone. Especially with that kind of like brown in there. It's looking like a nice grey brown. Kind of like a coffee brown. Greyish coffee brown. And that's useful. Right. Looks good. Let's apply the color right away. And because it's a teeny bit of green in that brown, when I added the white to that, you can still kind of see the color in there. You see, it looks a little bit greenish, just a hint of that. And that's really useful for if you're painting concrete. There's not really hints of green in there. That's actually because most browns are actually muted oranges, which means that they have a little bit of yellow in there. And yellow, when you add that to black or grey, it's gonna end up looking a bit greenish. So I think I'll apply that even to the area that looks a bit more corroded. So let's just add a little bit of water and apply that thinly. And I think this is looking pretty good. I'm probably putting way too much effort into painting the terrain, but I enjoy painting terrain, so it doesn't feel like too much effort. And we are going pretty fast, can't complain. Added a little bit too much water there. It ended up going down into the brown. Not a big deal. Just wash off my brush a little bit. And kind of blend it out into the brown. So something else that's really useful if you're painting terrain is to have like the rotary table, lazy Susan kind of thing, so you can just work on it without having to touch the piece that you're working on. Paint on hands is normal, but that's a hobby. Grayish, brown, khaki tone colors. Just apply it to all the places where it's stone. And if a bit gets onto the metal pipes, that's okay. Because that'll be painted over later anyway. So right now, I think it looks pretty good. If I just put a heavy wash on this, we could call it done. But that'd be too easy, and I like putting in maximum effort for no reason. So apply more paint. Though of course I'm gonna wash this down later. In fact, if I wanted to, I could just do all of these base coats by hand, and then add some washes and color tones using the airbrush, and that would be really efficient. Final airbrush weathering is always a good choice if you have access to an airbrush. A bit more color in there. I'm not normally used to painting stuff very wetted and dirty. It's normally for nicer scattered above ground, so I try to be just clean or at most go a little darker. Painting something that's weathered and grimy is a new challenge for me. But I think we are doing okay so far. So I like the colors we chosen here. I'm just gonna kind of stipple in a little bit of highlights as we go on that brown area. So I normally wouldn't use as much gray, but like I said, this is scattered terrain, so we're gonna be using it in conjunction with dungeon tiles or other parts. And most of the dungeon tiles that we have are painted gray. Like, you know, boring old black, gray, and gray dry brush. That's just a production like paint job. So I kind of want stuff that works with that kind of color while also not being too boring. So I'm gonna go with this. I think we are okay. I'm not gonna really paint like the inside. If I want to, I'll just grab a bit of black later on and work on that. But it's not priority. So this is the paint job, kind of the colors that we're gonna be aiming for on the other parts. Put this down and get to more painting. So is this piece kind of dry? Almost, mostly. Interesting soundtrack. I may need to retire this brush after I'm done here. It's not doing so well. It doesn't feel so good. On the upside, like the fact that it's originally painted in, so originally printed in this kind of medium to lighter gray color means that even if I don't have perfect coverage on all of the parts, it is okay. It just looks like some color variation. And after painting a couple more pieces, I should probably take a quick break to hydrate. Hydration is good. You should always hydrate it. Do not drink paintbrush water. You can kind of see these are all the artifacts from 3D printing, right? The uneven surface, which can easily be painted as moss, so it's not an issue. Or algae or whatever. Rust. I might actually be painting these parts faster than they can dry, so I need to be careful when touching them. Some people like to paint different bricks, different colors when working with stone. So that when they dry brush, everything all comes together. And that's a pretty good way to introduce some color variation into your pieces. But I prefer that on larger scale pieces. So when I'm painting stuff like this, I tend to paint it one base color. And then I might do a wash later on of a couple different colors here and there across the piece. And then when I do an overall wash or whatever, then that helps a lot of just bring it all together. But like I said, with terrain, the name of the game is contrast. You don't want your terrain pieces to just be boring grey pieces of the table. Because if you were going to do that, you can just get some spray paint out, spray paint a couple of parts, do a wash, and you are done. If you're gonna take the time to paint them by hand, then try to incorporate some interesting, I guess, color variation, interesting points of interest when you're painting it by hand. Because it takes almost zero effort to just maybe mix a little bit of extra color on a few extra pieces. And take a little bit of color on that brush, on your brush when you're working with paint. And after a while, once you are used to incorporating that in your workflow, it's a lot faster. It's a lot easier as well. And stuff just looks better. It really does. Like once you move past, okay, my stone has to be grey, has to look grey. You start going to what other color is gonna add to my stone so that it's interesting. And that's when your terrain is gonna be start to stand out. That's what you all be aiming for. Nicer terrain. It doesn't have to be painted in super fine detail, but you should always try and paint interestingly. Because once you put it on the table, it's all gonna blend together. And yes, use slimy to read. It is super stimky and slimy. And it's gonna be great for us when we run Rooster in the next couple of weeks. Because, believe it or not, we are really close to Roosters anniversary. So I might be doing a few special runs in the studio with our special Stimky silver terrain. Anyway, I saw your message in Discord, and yes, purple. I am as confused as you are, but purple. Apparently. I'm not too sure. I think this other piece should have a bit of stone there as well, so take that out. Just gonna kind of put away the pieces that are just all wood and all metal. Because these pieces are gonna be painted a little differently. And I'm working the stone right now. So it's this few pieces. Though I think this particular piece actually looks more like most of it is metal. But I could definitely see the couplings being done in stone instead. We'll see. I mean, that's intentional, right? If it looks like toxic sludge and you apply it, your piece will look more like toxic sludge. Yay! I think the other issue with the paint job that you're working on is that the faces look really similar. And with the higher quality you know, miniature in general, the fact that I Zenithal primed it really helped a lot with the quality of the paint job. Because that was a pretty good priming job, if I might say so myself. Not sure what this square is supposed to be. It kind of feels like they should be like glowing gems or something. One should be green, one should be blue or red, just like in DDO. See what puzzle time. I have to say that the bases also worked out really well. They are really nice colors. Yes. Which is why, rather than pin washes, you need some nice, smooth, bright highlights on the face instead. You know, you need face painting practice. Say, you know, I have a whole bunch of guards and they have like modular heads. You can paint the head separately, right? And by the time you're done painting those, you will become really good at painting eyes. This is a great idea. Should do a painting workshop soon, just face painting. Here, here's a head on stick. Paint it. Hello. Living up to your name, I guess. I'm painting out some really stinky looking sewers. And as you can tell, my paint, like Phantom said, really looks like sewer sludge. So this sewers are from the Lost Avengers Volume 3 Kickstarter. And a friend got done printing this up for me recently, so I need to paint them all up so that I can use them for our D&D game soon. I love that emote, by the way. It is so meme-worthy. So I've just got done kind of painting in the ground area. I'm roughing in the color that I want for the stone. So it's a little bit grey, but not really. It's kind of like this greenish texture to it, like concrete. And this is just the boring base coating part of painting, so it's nice to have people to chat with. Thank you. So how did you find us? Click on Stimky Sewer Terrain. Because it really is living up to its name. And it's so messy. But this was another piece that I was working on before this. Ah, I see. Don't drop, don't drop, don't drop. So, yes, look at this. Yes, it's very moist. Do not use that word. I don't want to talk about how moist this terrain is. And I suspect the players would like to not think about why the terrain is moist. But hey, yeah, thanks for saying hi, even if you normally lurk. Otherwise, I just talk to myself, and that's also okay. I do that all the time. It's hard to get a good conversation, you know? I'd probably be doing a gloss coat for sure, especially on the water areas. I had some gel, pouring gel medium or something. Liquitex is weird stuff, so what I'm thinking is that I might mix a little bit of the green ink or something into that and just apply it over the watery area so it just looks disgusting. As I say, absolutely disgusting. The fake accent is required. And there are a couple little cobblestone pieces on here, so I should not miss those, but paint those so that they stand out from the brown, black, baby poop colored thing that we did. I was just talking earlier about how secret weapon miniatures, and how one of my favorite colors from them was called baby poop, and it was just this greenish brown. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. You can probably see the color in your head. Baby poop. Look, don't lick the brush anyway, right? It's not a good habit. Also, right now, I'm painting using artist paints, so even though they are student paints, a little cheaper than the usual artist acrylics, a bit thicker, a bit more full of medium and filler. But I have cadmium yellow in there somewhere, and whether or not I've mixed that in here, I just try to avoid licking paints because it's a bad habit. And sure, you know, miniature paint's normally not an issue because they don't use toxic pigments like cadmium red or cadmium yellow, but I'd stay safe. Because you don't want to end up like one of those famous painters that ended up dying, having issues because of heavy metal poisoning. Heavy metal was meant to be listened to and not ingested. Do not eat the paint. Please. Stop. Okay, so these are kind of all the pieces I think that need the majority of themselves painted for that metal pipe color. And I like painting copper pipes. I do not like painting iron pipes because iron pipes are boring. This is not at all because I prefer painting green and orange. So, let me think. If I'm gonna paint those pipes, I want... I think I'll just go straight in with the burnt sienna. Just burnt sienna, a little bit of mixing whites. And just not have that on the other side of this so that if I need to, I can mix some color in. Come on. There we go. Burnt sienna. Yeah. You know the whole thing about the Vadium goals? Have you heard about the story? Like, the fact though that their teeth and their entire jaws were just eaten from inside out by radiation, that's scary. And they fought so hard to make themselves known, and people just were terrible to them. So super incredible. So I'm just going straight on to burnt sienna, and I'm applying it a little more thinly than I did for the other parts, but it's pretty good for kind of a rusty color already. And when I add on more colors on top of that, it's gonna be interesting. Thanks for the reminder to hydrate. I will shortly, I think. Like from what I recall, one of them had issues with the court case because her cause of death was mistakenly put by the coroner as like syphilis, and so like the companies tried to discredit her and claim that it was something else entirely. But it's because of things like that that we have better worker protections nowadays. So we should be thankful to her and her friends. Whether, to her friends for carrying on her memory. It's this orange burnt sienna color that we're using right now just looks wonderful. It's really bright, but that's okay because when you apply browns and greens over the parts that should be brown and green, that's gonna be really good. So I'm kind of like painting this in reverse. I'm painting the rusty colors first. And the not so rusty parts after. With the glossiness from the paint being wet, it actually looks like copper. Pretty interesting. I normally don't use this burnt sienna color without mixing some brown in. It also doesn't have the highest coverage. So I'll put brown in there. So I'm actually mixing that with the brown that we have here, this grayish brown. And it's a pretty decent color. I'm going to use that here and there to kind of do a blend at the lower parts. Just it's leaving a lot of texture in there. And it's really kind of fun. This is so fun, come on. After I'm done with this, I shall take a quick break to have a drink. Drink times. It's time to check out stuff. HP going back up. I will say that one thing about painting terrain like this is that your paintbrush gets super dirty super fast. So if you don't use a paintbrush you like a lot, let's mix a little bit more of the burnt sienna and the color. Just get a more mild looking color. My goal was that by the end of the stream today, these pieces should be mostly done. If not, like completely done. This means that I really will have to work at it and stop being so perfectionist about things. And that's partly of why I'm using this painting style, because if I'm forced to not care as much about how good something looks, then I can at least get to a reasonable standard faster. It's not gonna be super ugly. Just intentionally ugly. Gotta apply the paint at a super speed. Basically, my goal here is to get paint on as many parts as possible so that you don't see the gray. And later on, I might go over some individual parts, highlight them, make them look better. Or worse, you know. Entirely intentional there. Sorry if a reasonably corroded orangish look to them, which works whether I'm doing copper or I'm doing iron. So we can continue with that. Just applying more. And trying my best not to touch the paint. Just let me just results in me touching the paint anyway. Ah. The one time I could really use my gloves and I forgot to take them. It's okay, I'll just wash my hands later. Add a little bit of that orange to the floor tiles as well. A little bit to the brown options. Always use something a little brighter in there. So I'm quickly diving more into the purple parts. So highlight. There we go. I have no way to hold this without getting paint on my hands. That is very smart. The messy paint jobs. Who doesn't love them, right? I'll be painting up the cobblestones here. And on this side, it looks like there's a leak, but I was wrong, and this side is actually totally okay. There is no leak. So I'm just gonna paint the cobble colors. And apply them, I guess, over everything here. Mind blown. I think the dark brown parts, we use a little bit of a lighter brown dry brush later on, a slightly warmer tone. But I don't have to worry about that right now. Hey, not bad, some of the other parts are almost dry. And by almost dry, I mean I really shouldn't have touched them. I'm an idiot. But Sina's really putting in the work here. It's just nice, earthy, neutral tones. I'm glad that I picked that up. Even when it mixed into grey, it was pretty good. It's like, even if I didn't do any other work, and you just looked at this, you go, hey, you know what, that's a corroded pipe. Metal pipe. Steel? Iron? Copper? Can't tell. It's corroded. And the nice thing about this orangish color is that if you add a brown wash to it, it can easily pass for bronze or copper. Add a black wash to it, and it may look a little bit more like partially corroded iron. It's very rusty. Which makes sense, it's been a while since I painted terrain like this, and my painting skills are a little rusty. Spread. Don't want to see it gray. I'm liking the fact that by adding the grey, I've introduced some greenish tones into this. So it looks like it's just absolutely caked with terrible things. And that's perfect for sewers when you don't want to touch anything in there. I suppose, as opposed to sewers where you want to touch things in there. Of which there probably are not very many. And it should be more like storm drain sewers. Like, as a dungeon master, if you're describing clean sewers, where's the fun in that? You need to make your players regret entering the sewers. Make them RP clean themselves off. You try to be nice to the one party member that has pressed to remove the smell and clean their clothes. That's the fun of running a sewer. It's pretty much done. Just a little bit of color here. I'm not gonna paint the front side because that would be paint to move front. Right. It's like I'm playing Tetris. Just get everything to fit on the painting mat. Now apply paint with no regard of what exactly we are painting. If the phrase goes in Singlish, anyhow whack is okay. But I have to say that this is easier than usual to paint because the 3D printed textures are really working with us to make it seem like it's corroded. And that's incredibly useful. So thank you, Puritan, for this awesome 3D prints. They will be put to good use. And this grates would definitely be rusted iron, so let's get that orange burnt here and there. I've not really decided what colors I want this shapes to be. Kind of look like gems or some kind of indicator. So I tend to just leave them unpainted. But I'm not too bothered if I get a bit of paint into them. Because whatever I'm painting them, I can just paint over that later. Smells super rusted. I said it a couple of times now, but I really like how the sewers are looking. Ooh, the leg spike. Yeah, that's bad. And it's back again. Just what I need. Leg spikes. Looks like OBS it's mixing out on memory for whatever reason. That's annoying. Are we back? Looks like we're back. Alright. Sorry about that. OBS is being a little strange. I'm gonna quickly hit the iron door with some orange first, so that when I paint over it with actual metallic colors, or if I don't, it will still look decent. And it's a bit of rust. Nice, easy iron build. Best build. So paint the rain is a pretty dirty affair. Have plenty of tissue paper on hand, or paper towels, whatever floats your boat. This piece is working on, had a couple of the copper pipes at the side. So it's time to hit them with our strange orangish mixture. So even though it's not really visible, but here if it's printed, it must be painted. Smaller pipes here as well. Don't forget about those. It's down for a while. Let's look at a couple of the other pieces. This one also needs that rusted color tone. If I recall, this part didn't just have the dirt and stone in there. There's a little bit of stuck with cobble, so I'm gonna use what remains of that original grayish color. Stipple some color in there. With all of the finesse of a toddler learning how to write, which is to say, none at all. Let's bring the other small pieces over. So still can use a bit more time to dry. That's fine. Let's work on the other pipe. The other pipe parts in the pipeline. Yeah. Let's move some grey over, mix it more with the burnt sienna. Get that strange orangish metallic tone. So it looks like there isn't a single spot on this where it hasn't started to rust. Now, there are a few people who paint their sewer terrain this really bright, toxic looking green, and I'm kind of tempted. It just looks a little weird sometimes. As a painting entirely like that old school RPG kind of look. I might try something like that instead of me upcoming terrain pieces like Death House, because I realize that if I don't do that, the Death House that we painted doesn't have much texture. So by doing that and painting in more texture, it makes it a little bit more interesting. Seems reasonable. I've done completely base coating the metals. Just need to do some interesting highlights and paint in the moss, algae, slimy green stuff, whatever, on the rock. in a bit of rust on the grate as well. It's looking pretty great. And I have this walkway which is like made of pipes with a couple of wooden pieces. Yeah, so I was thinking about Death House, and because we painted it with no texture on the inside, of course I'm gonna paint the furniture interestingly, but I was thinking of doing, you know, kind of like the old school Hero Quest style tile painting. And I thought it looked pretty interesting. Where it's like an old school dungeon crawler, but it does actually have some really bright colors. And you could paint like, you know, fake cracks on detail. And highlight them in off-white or something, like it's cell shaded. So I think that would be really fun to try. And also, you know, if I finally got it done and painted, we could actually run Death House with the full terrain set. And that'd be pretty incredible. If nerve-wracking. Well, if you want to, you can come and help with the painting of Death House. You can help me base coating furniture pieces. And you know, of course, there's that other special part of Death House that has not been painted yet. I think that'd be super cool to do in the same style. Especially, you know, the fanboy shrine. Just paint everything in this cell shaded, old school RPG kind of feel. But I want to paint that too. It's fun. Come on. That is fair. But the shrine, though. It's the ultimate senpai notice me attempt. Look at this bridge. It looks like the kind of bridge you can trust your life to. It looks very reliable. And not at all like it's going to snap apart when you step up. The best kind of bridge. So, was this painted so it looks like it's falling apart? Or was it painted that way because it is falling apart? Let's find out. The players are gonna hate this so much. I love it. Okay. And there's more than one bridge. There are always plenty of bridges to burn. Okay, so I could work on painting the pipes and all that more right now, but I think that we're getting pretty close to a normal end time for the stream. So what I'm gonna do is jump straight to painting the liquid, I guess, so that we can at least get everything to a barely painted standard, but then you know, mostly painted. So I'm gonna need this piece. Where's the other piece that has water? Fluid. To paint the sewer fluid. I don't know what kind of fluid it is, but I don't want any of it. It's probably disgusting and dank and grimy. Very stinky. This one? No. The other side, right? That's it. None. Alright, so just this few pieces. You see, it's not a bridge, it's a test of faith. Faith that your party members will catch you if the bridge falls apart. It's what we call intra-party bonding session. Right, so we have a whole bunch of burnt sienna here. It'd be a shame to waste it. So let me get to my green. This sewer pieces actually had more that was supposed to be done together with them, but we are a little busy, so end up not really working in them as much as I should. It's okay, I'm sure we're done with playing them eventually. It's funny how mixing green into that bright orange makes it nice warm brown. But look at that baby poop green. That's what I'm talking about. Baby poop green. London sewer fatberg green. And fatberg green should be a color. See? So disgusting. Wonderful. Exactly what I've been looking for. Just gonna apply that to this wooden tiles here. This color, you might really need a sanity check. Just disgusting. We can call it sanity check green. Look at that baby blue color. Gosh. Ew. Not color variation where the more you see, the less you want to think about it. Poopy green. Of course, it's probably going to dry quite a little bit darker, and then we'll have to highlight that with some more virulent looking color. It's okay for now. Oh, look at that, it's splashing outwards. There is backsplash. You. It's a little more green. Too red. Just so disgusting. Look at this disgusting thing. It's. What the heck am I painting? Need sort of this color inside the remnants of the beautiful green on the inside of the pipe. Burst open, clearly resulting in beautiful green everywhere. See some that's even come out of the pipe here, and it's leaking down. It's leaking down the wheel, the valve, and pouring into the ground. So like you have to gloss that one part just to differentiate it more. But right now, I think all we're kind of missing on the pieces so far is a bit of a stippling, maybe a bit of dry brushing, some metallic paint to get the details out. But most of that can wait a bit because a lot of this artist paints it a little while to dry, so then it's best to let them dry overnight or at least for a couple of days before I touch them up. I think I can almost call it done for today. And I'm just missing painting I guess the indicator light things. Should they be painted as glass? Glass is. So when I paint glass, I should underpaint with a little bit of white. Or off-white. Teeny tiny amount titanium buff. My teeny tiny amount is actually a lot. Oops. Guess I'll just have to use it. I'm just using a synthetic brush for this, so nothing super special. And picking out each part with that off-white tone. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, really. If this was not a silver, I would say this is space for hanging, heraldry or logos or whatever in banner. But since it is a silver, and as such, not very well taken care of, shall paint them as kind of like glass. If you have played Dungeons and Dragons Online, this is gonna be like the red and green signal crystals that you use to solve puzzles. You need to put the right levers, and then they'll all turn green, and then this door will open. Makes sense. And after you walk through, you get jumped by kobolds. Such is life in the waterworks. Stormreach, a great face. 11 out of 10 will go there again. It should be painted as metal. We'll see. Either way, just paint them a different color helps me see where they are at a glance. There's only one other piece that had them, and it was this. Yeah, this is really great for DDO. Perfect kind of manufacturing parts. That one's kind of broken, covered in goop. So, nice and easy painting. It doesn't even have to be a perfectly even coat. This makes it even easier. then now that I have so much off-white, I guess I should make use of that by mixing that with the baby poke. And a bit of just a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green. Like 15 minutes to work on adding some moss to the sewer pieces. So should be nice and easy. Add some dirty color in there, just add a bit of green, a little bit of cadmium yellow, so that it looks green, but not the same green that we used earlier. Then shifts the hue to be a bit more yellowish, especially together with the off-white that we use. Interesting. Bit more yellow. Color right now would be nice, mix it with gloss medium, painting over the sewage. Let's make it yellowish. Really working that cadmium in there. Please don't lick your brush if you're using cadmium. I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Paint water is becoming saturated and disgusting. So fun part. Stabby, 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 stabby. Tappity tap. Look at that. Look at me, I'm weathering. I'm a pro painter. Weathering. Instantly, boom. Look at the difference in that sewer piece, right? The color, just adding the texture in there helps so much. See, like 10 minutes ago it looked like crap, and now it looks like slightly less crap. Wait, it's supposed to look like crap. This is a sewer. You know what I mean. Just sewer things. Add a little bit more of this green on top. Make it look like stuff is floating along the sewage. Because it probably is, just don't want to think about it too much. There we go. So good. So fussy. And of course it only looks like this because it is wet. Once the paint dries, it's going to be toned down a little bit, a little darker. So you don't have to worry so much about it looking too green or too yellowish green. It's like, hey, I heard you had texture. Maybe texture a little bit here. Here as well. If there's even just a hint of a texture where it looks like I should be putting that, I'm putting that on there. Doesn't matter. Add texture. This is totally fine if there's a bit of greenish stuff on your metal. Perfectly normal. You need to have some greens with your metal as well. Remember, your iron also needs greens. Balanced diets are important. Keep your slimes healthy. Right, add green in here. So probably just going to use a bit of a blue and purple wash on individual bricks of this. So it doesn't dull down the colors I'm putting on right now too much. Looks good. By that I mean looks bad, but in a good way. Stabby, 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 stabby. Stabby, dab, stab. Stipple, stipple harder. I'm just surprised this brush has like survived all this time. It's a good brush. Thank you for your sacrifice. You will be remembered. might be going slightly overboard with the green, and there's only one solution to that, and that is to add more green. Add a little bit of orange in so that the green's even more obvious. Now that's what I call weathering with purpose. I know my friend Pipe is trying to make you look absolutely fetid. This is not a safe working environment. Occupational hazards may include occasional stimes of the earth, so on and so forth. Random magical waste, angry kobolds, and red mutants are also expected for workplace hazards. Apply now. We are always hiring. And the sad thing is that that's not an actual job application notice. Alright, stabby stab, stipple, stipple, stipple. According to OBS, lag. FPS is dropping so hard. I have 3 minutes left and I'm almost done. Come on. Lighten up. I'm just painting in the growth, moss, whatever. Oh. Sketchy green stuff. A little bit too much green stuff there. Let's go in there with some brown stuff. Lighten it up. There. Solution to too much is always getting. Which means that now that this piece is done, this last piece, second last piece, the only thing I have left to do is to maybe dry brush or stipple in some metallics and paint the wooden portions and the glass portions, and we're done. Let me help you out there and do a little bit of good old stipple. Stippling. Look like some stuff splashed out, and it's starting to grow. Right. Try not to college dorm's bathroom. Perfect. Troglodyte is not included. Absolutely. So we are done, Zoros. So this piece is done. Let's take a moment to get a new piece of tissue paper. So don't mess everything up, but it's pieces. Look at it. Look at that disgustingly icky paint, right? But this is my entire palette that I was working with the entire time. And you can see what I mean by just using the same colors and adding more colors to that, and how it works out pretty well. Tetris. That works here, kinda. And this piece fits in here. Okay. The only piece that can't really fit is the bridge. That's also not really done yet, so this is the bridge. And like the two walkways I base coded earlier are not really an issue here, so that is it. That is it. We are done with our sewer terrain. I'm just gonna wait maybe a couple of days and let it sit overnight so that it can dry out. But this is pretty much where we are at right now for it. So I think it looks pretty good. Don't know about you, but I think it looks good. So it looks good. No one cares for what you think. Shush. But yes, sewer terrain kind of looks icky. Could use a little bit of shading, you can tell, for like each individual stones, but as a whole the colors are there, so it's just up to me to add that shading when I'm working on the metals. So just do some quick and easy washes. And oil wash would be great for this. I might take one of the brown oil washes and hit everything with that. But I need to make sure that the acrylics are suitably dry first. So I'm just going to leave it as is for now. Oh no, that's a piece of fiber stuff. Okay. Go away, fiber, go away. So it's kind of my style of painting sewer terrain. The next time I paint the sewer terrain, I'll probably have completely forgotten what recipe I used. And that doesn't really matter because it's all just icky and disgusting anyway. It should be easy enough to replicate. Just channel your inner baby poop. Just paint it in all the shades of baby poop. And you have it all done. Either way, for those of you that tuned in, thanks for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to have you. And if you want to be back, I think we have a stream tomorrow. Crimson will be streaming. He's still not quite sure what he's going to be streaming, but it's okay about D&D. So remember that if you save up plenty of sneak attack points for today, use them tomorrow instead. You know you want to. And in the meantime, I'll see you guys around. If you were painting while I was painting, you know what you have to do. Post them in miniature painting chat on Discord. Monsters in the multiverse, really? I guess, yeah, that's a nice thing to chat about. You can talk about how you like using some of the monsters in there to bully your players. I think that's always fun, right? DMs love learning about how to make the players stay the worst. In any case, good night, and I'll see you guys around.